30 years after the Yugoslav wars, the IIP asked experts about what they perceive is the biggest challenge in the reconciliation process. This is what they said.
I mean, the biggest challenge is that the facts are still not accepted. So there is a need to establish a truth about the events, and this has not happened due to the state policies, due to prolonged nationalism on all sides in the region, and due to the fact that we don't see courageous leaders stepping forward and trying to address the underlying issues. And as long as the facts are not established, it's difficult to negotiate how to meet each other halfway, because then each side is producing their facts and their truth, which is simply not natural.
The biggest challenge or challenges, education. Education has really deteriorated everywhere. And it has it's working in the opposite direction very often. It's really contributed to all kinds of conspiracy theories, people not really having a criteria how to distinguish what's true, what isn't true, what is a historical fact, what isn't. So bad education and deterioration of the education in all the countries, I think, has been a serious issue.
Well, I believe it is really the civil war attitude, and the attitude that everybody involved in this conflict considers himself, herself to be a victim of this conflict.
I think the biggest challenge in terms of reconciliation is understanding that it's a process that is going to take commitment from generations, and that it requires brave and convinced politicians who are ready to do things that are sometimes seen as unpopular in order to bring sustainable peace.
The biggest challenge, in my opinion, is that the states which emerged after the collapse of Yugoslavia establish trust between them and overcome victim-perpetrator patterns as an interpretation for their past, present, and future.
The biggest challenge in my mind is the fact that the past is still very much alive, that media in the region and talk about the events of the 1990s nearly every day in a very antagonistic way, and that politicians across the region seek benefit from keeping the conflict at a low intensity brewing, and of course that a number of the disputes aren't resolved.
I think the biggest challenge was to accept the situation which was created through the Yugoslav war and the Dayton Agreement. I think to accept it that it is and to live with, I think that's one of the difficulties. It's not yet done. If you are looking especially to the Kosovo question, but also to Bosnia-Herzegovina, I think they have not yet accepted in which circumstances they are.
I think that in coming years and decades, one of the biggest challenges will be to continue to have resources dedicated to the process and strong people and strong institutions that will make sure that the truth or the facts from the period continue to be in the generations to come, given attention and given the value that they do.
I think still the biggest challenge after the wars is this nationalistic politics in the Western Balkans and the way how politicians actually use nationalism to promote their ideas and to get voters to vote for them without considering the effect of nationalism on young people, how the young people will be affected by nationalism, and how actually this can only be a setback for the reconciliation and not a success story.
From the perspective I am researching and trying to understand reconciliation, the biggest challenge is by far overcoming denial of the past and everything that the past itself, the past of conflict, carries with it. in specifically denial of one's own group's responsibility for human rights violations.
Yeah, we never really discussed, without emotions, what exactly happened. I mean, concrete crime. And whenever the crime was presented, even the hardcore nationalists were given up, saying, oh, this was horrible. But it was very rarely presented, and it was never presented to the people, younger than I am, like yourself and even younger, in more detail, just to explain what crime happened, what person A did to person or persons B, C, D.
Well, this definitely to me is the fact that at the moment and over the last years, newly fueled nationalism and also religious fundamentalism of all sorts, not just one religion, is increasingly getting stronger again, and also authoritarian thinking. And the thing of, you know, not allowing freedom of civil society, of media, etc., that is something that really worries me.
I think the biggest challenge is to look for justice on the one hand, and on the other hand for reconciliation. For example, in Kosovo now there is an idea to go to the International Court and to accuse Serbia of genocide, which in some way one can understand with limitations of what concerns the expression of genocide. But on the other hand, it may disturb and stop a reconciliation process. So I think this is the biggest challenge, looking for justice on the one hand, but on the other hand, be ready for reconciliation.
Yeah, there are more than one challenge to reconciliation process. Some factors that led to the war are still present today. And when I say this, I think we still face nationalism as the dominant ideology, not only in Serbia, but in other countries as well. And nationalistic forces that are quite dominant and in power as well.